Hello, my name is James Trapani. Today, Diane Coleman and I will be speaking to you about Australia's place in the world economy. This topic has never been more relevant than during the COVID pandemic and recession of 2020. Your job and livelihood are linked to the international economy, whether you like it or not. Australia has the 14th largest economy in the world per the IMF 2019. The size of economies is measured through gross domestic product, or GDP. The GDP of a nation is essentially every economic activity that occurs in that nation. From your morning coffee all the way up to a container of iron ore sent to China, it all adds up. Per capita, Australia is a wealthy country, but it is incredibly dependent on the international economy. Given that its three largest exports are coal, iron ore, and natural gas, the price of those goods means a lot to our national well-being. If the price goes down, our dollar and federal revenues go down. If they stay high, our dollar and national revenues increase. This isn't just an issue for the billionaires. If the dollar goes down, goods cost you more. If national revenues go down, then the government has less money for schools and hospitals. This is why a successful democracy needs to be economics literate, in addition to being politics literate. It matters to all of us, and we need our leaders to work in our interests. In Pod 1, I will introduce you to the concept of political economy in an attempt to contextualise why foreign economic relations matter to you as an individual Australian. In Pod 2, Diane will overview Australia's trade, and finally in Pod 3, Diane will explain to you foreign investment in Australia. So let's get started. Political economy is the study of international trade and investment. It is an older discipline than modern economics, which fixates on stock markets, but it is still relevant to explain the interconnections between states and the nature of those exchanges. Look around the room that you're in. You may see furniture, electronics, lighting, clothes, and other consumer goods. Think about where they were made. Most furniture comes from China. Electronics may come from other East Asian countries, while your clothes were probably made in Southeast Asia. Your car may be American, Japanese, or German. The food you ate today could be from New Zealand, the Philippines, or even Italy. And you may be lucky enough at the end of the day to enjoy an Italian coffee, a German beer, or a French wine. Why is this the case? Why don't we just make everything here? Would we be better off without trade at all? None of these are stupid questions, and you'll hear them in pubs and cafes for the rest of your life. However, I want to introduce you to some simple concepts to explain why we have to trade. Firstly, we have the International Division of Labor. Just like within a country, some people will do our taxes, some people will cut our hair, some people will make our coffee. Countries serve specific roles in the international economy. More developed countries like the USA or Japan will focus on technological development. Median income countries like China will focus on manufacturing, while poorer countries like Guatemala will focus on mining or agriculture. Everyone has a role to play, and it contributes to a rising standard of living around the world. Returning to your room of possessions, if everything was made here in Australia, it would be much more expensive and you would own less things. A car may cost $100,000, while a basic t-shirt may cost $50. Some argue that the preservation of jobs is worth that sacrifice. But those who want a $10,000 car or a $5 t-shirt, they advocate for free trade. As most countries in the world want this, the world has become smaller and interconnected through globalization. Hence, we are interdependent on one another and things get complicated. Let's take one example. Many of you will be watching this on an iPhone, or at least have an iPhone sitting on your desk next to your computer. Apple is a famous American company. While the iPhone was developed, designed, and marketed in the USA, most of the production is done overseas. Samsung from South Korea and Sunwoda Electric from China make the batteries. Touchscreens are made by Broadcom in factories in Brazil, India, Israel, and the UK. Components are sent to Taiwan to be assembled and are distributed around the world. So when Diane talks about our trade, does the iPhone sit in the USA column, or the Taiwan column, or the Korea and China columns, or some combination of all of them? And who gets credit may not even matter. The reality is that if you pay $1,000 for your iPhone, some of the money goes to each country. In turn, those countries buy Australian goods so that we have enough money to pay for the iPhone. If we exported nothing, our currency would be worthless and you would not have that iPhone. Secondly, we have the debate between protectionism and neoliberalism. Some people want to protect certain industries in the economy from foreign competition. Take the car industry, for example. For over 50 years, we made cars in Australia, and that supported a lot of jobs. But our labour costs more than foreign labour. Hence, the cars would cost more. So if a Holden costs $10,000 more than a Mazda, some people would place a $10,000 tariff on the Mazda to assist local businesses and jobs. A tariff is essentially a tax on trade. If you want to sell a Mazda in Australia, then you would need to give the Australian government $10,000. It is designed to distort the market and protect jobs. But it's not even that simple. If you impose a tariff on Japanese cars, Japan will impose a tariff on Australian coal to advantage more friendly countries' coal export industries. Neoliberals argue that capitalism needs pure freedom and that if Australia's car industry is not profitable, then it should just collapse. And that the positives of free trade in terms of markets for iron ore, coal and natural gas in Japan far outweigh the negatives of cheap Japanese cars putting Australian car production out of business. Hence, our government has a free trade agreement with Japan. An FTA is an agreement between states to lower the barriers to trade between each state and preference each other's goods. Most modern states view trade as mutually beneficial. Finally, we need to consider the exploitation of labour. The free market incentivizes very low prices. However, many of our goods are made in inhumane circumstances. There is a place within the international economy to look out for the vulnerable of the world and boycott those companies who exploit the labour of children, for example. We also have to acknowledge that our political economy leads to unequal development of states. If a Bangladeshi woman needs to make 5,000 t-shirts a month just to buy enough food, medicine and education resources for her children, there is room to modify our system of international trade to look after the most vulnerable in the world. But we need to be informed and we need to have political will. That will take all of us supporting ethical corporations and punishing those who are exploitative by removing our business through boycotts. So let's look at Australia. We're a bit of an anomaly in the world. We are a highly developed, wealthy nation whose three largest exports are the products of mining. We are more than self-sufficient in food, yet we export and import large quantities of different agricultural goods. We have a minute manufacturing sector, which explains our dependence on manufactured imports, but we have a booming tertiary sector with leaders in education, health, engineering, science, and all other service-based industries. Hence, we have combined the strong primary industries of mining and agriculture with an emerging tertiary sector at the expense of any development of our secondary sector of manufacturing. Our leaders have decided that this is the best way forward. Time will tell if they are correct. Over the next pods, Diane will introduce you to Australia's economic relations with the world, firstly focusing on trade, then turning your attention to investment. I'll see you next week.